or should I pass it over to somebody else?
Uh, um, my burning question was why why does Xbox struggle to market in Africa, or struggle, or
Oh,
just intentionally ignore the African continent?
yeah.
Because
Listen, this is
PlayStation,
a
even though PlayStation doesn't have like digital representation in terms of they don't let us buy games because they don't believe the rest of the African continent exists in the financial district. Like you can't put your card details unless you're in South Africa, whereas Xbox allows you to do that wherever you are in Africa. If you guys can do that, why? Oh, well, you're not at Xbox right now, but when you were there, what was you guys' vision of Africa as like customer base?
Dude, that's such a hard question because, like, there is. I mean, it's just there's so many issues packed into there. I mean, there's like an anti-Africa bias built into the whole world, right? I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And like that, if you can make a big profitable business without having to do the extra work to add Africa, then people are just going to do that. They're just going to be dicks about it. And the thing is, you're missing out on, I mean, I think you're missing out on three really important things. Okay. First of all, you're missing out on game developers who would come out of Africa and the ideas and voices and shit that they could do that people from other places are not going to be able to do, right? That's a voice that people really want to hear. And you see occasionally like breakout products come out of Africa, movies and TV shows, music, right? And everybody's like, "Oh my God, like I can't believe there's this huge hit from Africa. Like it's a continent that is in orbit or something, right?" And then no, it's just people. Maybe you should let them make stuff. So they miss out on the content because they're not like giving the market a place for that to actually go. Um, they're they make a decision probably that the investment they have to make in infrastructure isn't going to earn its money back. And so that becomes a very difficult conversation to have when you have a bunch of like, bankers and people who are like, constraining you. And as you know, at every company, at every large company, there is going to be this bias. It's going to be racist. It's going to be religious. It's going to be, Eurocentrist. It's going to be all these things, and people are going to fight you for trying to go into Africa. It's just how it is, and so you need somebody who's going to champion it. And so far, nobody's championed it, and somebody needs to fucking champion it. That's important. Okay. And
All
the
right.
third thing is, I mean, you
Yeah,
could
look, be a
have
champion.
well, and it's not that hard because like you know, and I think a lot of it is just, is also just ignorance. It's like, the people group Africa in with a whole group
Yes.
of other economies, and they don't understand that it's its own vibrant economy with like a totally different like kind of infrastructure and the infrastructure in Africa is not a disaster, it's just different, and
Yes.
it's just like in the Middle East, we do the same thing. And you've seen this like with the war and all that. You see, Muslims and in a lot of cultures, people just have these crazy ideas about Muslims. Oh, they don't really have an economy and they don't really have, it's like
They don't
what?
have
Like
electricity.
the number system you use for your economy was invented by them, you fucking moron, right? So
Yes.
this is like
Yeah.
just general ignorance and push. And I think those are the reasons. You're right. There is no good practical reason why all the consoles shouldn't be in Africa. There is no good practical reason why African engineers and programmers shouldn't be making games. There is no good reason why there shouldn't be game companies in Africa making African games that would do great in other countries. Um, except for just ignorance, probably a lot of institutional racism and bias, and fear and reluctance to have to spend any money to open up a new market, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with you on the ignorance part, especially with the preconceived notions of Africa. I wrote an article for IGN a couple of years ago that went viral. I'm sure you didn't see it, but it went pretty viral. It went to the New York Post and everything. And I just explained, I broke down essentially, and clowns, this is for you because you're talking about it's a risky market. I broke down the risk all over the world. There is a vibrant gaming community in South America. there are more people dying. There's more conflict in South America than the whole of Africa.
Oh yeah.
We won't even get to the Middle East or Eastern Europe. But no one looks at those regions and says, oh, no consoles. All right. So this is not about risk. This is not about potential wars. It is literally just what you talked about, Seamus. Bias. That's all it is.
And it feeds back on itself too, because you're like, okay, well, we're not gonna spend money to make a console infrastructure like in South America. And then we don't spend money. And so what do people do? They're not going to stop playing games. So they pirate games. And then you say, oh, well, it's all piracy down there. Like, well, yes. Asshole, because you didn't invest anything. What?
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so, somebody.
It's like Nintendo with their old games.
Well, somebody's going to. What do you think people are going to do? Somebody's going to move into Africa. Somebody will move meaningfully into the Middle East, and even South America. It's it's like those they get treated like crap. Also, in terms of games.
Not as bad as here.
No.
I wish I lived in South America. Jeez.
Well, and how sad a statement is that? Because like South America sucks really bad for games, and so it's just like, yeah, but gamers, and I know more about South American game studios than I know about African game studios. But
and we do have them.
Yeah, I know you do. I've seen them. I've bought games on iPhone from African studios that were awesome. And I wish I could remember the name of the developers right now, but I will go look it up.
So Apple Arcade, right, is sitting there and seeing value in Africa, and they're putting their games on.
And they're getting money, and they're making money from African developers.
Yes.
So, I think that there's a moment, I hope, in the future where somebody makes the investment and then makes a killing, a huge amount of money, and that turns everything around. But it is it's straight bias and just a lot of ignorance, just a lot of ignorance, and people all over the world are just so ignorant of where things come from. And there's a weird thing that human beings do that as I get older I see. It's like you guys have all heard of not invented here, right? Like people don't want to buy something if it's not from like the local place or if it's not invented inside their company. And like people tend to get the idea that like, only people that I know are able to make cool music, or only people that I know, and it's patently false, right? I mean, like most new creative ideas come from a place you've never heard of before, because that's why they're interesting, because they're new, and that's what you want, and it's new. So we'll see if that changes, man. And I know it's got to be really frustrating. And the other thing, just from a risk standpoint, like, dude, how much riskier does it get to try to move an American console brand into Japan? And we took that risk.
Yes.
That's so on the category of risk, like you said in your article, like it's just a misunderstanding of the relative risks of all of these different regions and categories and the challenges that they pose. And it's really just deciding that you're going to try.
Pretty much.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to go on a rant, but it pisses me off.
No, that's legit.
Some super chats here. Serix, man, come on, everyone. Let's share this out. Let's go. Thanks to everyone that's liking and sharing this out.